Morning, John.
Morning, Louise, you all right?
Yeah, are you ready?
I'm ready, let's do this.
So, John, obviously, on a personal level, I've known you for over 16 years, but I probably don't know how everything started for you and what it was like when you left school and what sort of direction you went in. How was that for you? How did you find navigating that?
So I left school at 16. I enjoyed school in a lot of ways, but it was something that I was definitely ready to leave and move on. And I'd been working quite a lot, probably when I was 14, 15, 16, doing lots of different type of jobs.
So you always had a work ethic?
Yeah, we did, yeah. Me and my brothers did as well. We all sort of worked together and also worked with your husband. But yeah, I was ready to leave school. I left at 16 and I got an apprenticeship as an electrical engineer. I started that in probably the August time, going to college, studying electrical engineering and working out in the field with engineers. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed working with a lot of the engineers that were there. Actually, that was okay.
So was it the nature of the work you were doing that you knew wasn't right for you?
A lot of people that know me know I'm not particularly fond of the cold. Doing a full day on site in the cold on a roof, it definitely wasn't for me.
A harsh reality into the working world.
Definitely. And I do feel for apprentices now, and actually I've worked with a lot of people in the construction industry in the roles that we do now. And I do sympathise when people say you should be recruiting more apprentices, you should be recruiting more apprentices, because having done it myself, it's something that I know a lot of people try and it's not for them.
Yeah. I know it's one of those things as well with apprenticeships now that it seems like such a fantastic option and there are so many options for apprenticeships now. And I suppose your example is a really good one to show that you don't really know what you want to do when you leave school and you need to get out there and try things.
100%. And I think that's one of the things that schools need to help students with more. It's not just university or apprenticeship. There is going to work and experiencing it. I mean, there's 18 now when they leave, so that is an option, but I definitely think that it's not for everybody and you do need to try different things. So yeah, I did that for about 9 months.
What did you do after that?
I saw an advert for an administrative assistant at the Valuation Office Agency, which is a central government body in Southgate. I went for that, I was interviewed and I was successful. I enjoyed working there, I did enjoy working there. I settled in quite quickly, but I've always been I mixed with people relatively easily. So I worked there for 10 years. I was promoted within, I think, 2 years. And then again, another, I think, 18 months later, I was transferred to the office in Barking, down in East London. I worked there for, I think it was about a year or so, which was quite interesting, doing different work. I was a valuation referencer, which basically meant you went out measuring up shops and properties for business rates purposes, and then I went on to valuation of property itself.
At this point, obviously it had been 10 years and your role had evolved. Did you have a clear idea that that is what you wanted to do and you'd found your thing?
I'd always been interested in property. I'd always wanted or liked the thought of having my own business, but I didn't know what. So my dad worked for himself, my granddad had his own business, a lot of people in my family, my uncle had his own had his own business.
So I suppose having so many people, close-knit people around you who had their own businesses, whatever they may be, it was attainable for you.
Having people around me that had worked for themselves meant that you could see that making it in business wasn't impossible. You didn't need huge amounts of money to start off, and actually a lot of people didn't finish their education in those days. My parents, your parents sort of age group, they would have finished school at 14, 15 and then having their own business would have been a natural option for a lot of people. Going into employment probably would have been, to be honest, what a lot of people wouldn't have done. That definitely wouldn't have been the norm. But I was definitely interested in property. I bought my first, I bought it with my parents, an investment property when I was 18.
Oh, really?
With my life savings. So working at the valuation office opened a lot more insight into that world, and the training there was absolutely brilliant. It really was. I had done well. I was well supported there. I was managing 9 staff across 3 locations in Harrow, or 4 locations, in Westminster, Harrow, Barking and Enfield. But it had come to the point where I suppose my options really were limited for further progression. So it was either going to be to formally qualify to become a fully fledged chartered surveyor. Alternatively, it was progression in sort of the non-professional management area in that organisation.
I suppose you progressed so much at such a young age, then you almost get to that crossroads, don't you? What do I do now? Where do I go?
And at that point, bearing in mind I'm in my late 20s, a baby on the way, and we had a home and we'd moved to a 2-bedroom house we'd bought in Enfield, so I really did need to start earning and keep progressing.
For sure, yeah.
They paid well, but one of the things is the terms are very good, but the pay doesn't tend to be great. So I went to Tower Hamlets, and that led me into the freelancing and the big wide world of local government, which
so
was
we're into
certainly
like
interesting.
2008 sort of time now.
Yeah, so I went back, I resigned, take this new opportunity, go into project management. I'd never done that before. I'd never done procurement. I didn't even know what procurement meant. Genuinely, I had to go outside and Google it. They asked me to run a procurement project. I had to go and Google it on the
Straight
on the
thrown
phone.
in on the deep end.
Yeah, I didn't know, but you pedal hard.
Yeah.
So freelancing, I went to, I stayed at Tower Hamlets, continued the work. I worked there probably, I think, for maybe another 18 months. Then I had quite a big gap, actually, and that's when real panic set in because I didn't work from, I think it was May, June to around the November time. Because the Tories had come in. There was a big public sector spending freeze while they did a big review because basically Labour had left the government in a lot of debt. But a lot of organisations had a big recruitment and spending freeze.
That must have been a really scary time then.
It was, yeah, it's very difficult time because you do start to then wonder what's going wrong.
Well, you don't have
I made the wrong decision?
Yeah.
And that's when you go back to that, yes, it's okay getting 2-3 times your salary, but literally
equate it over the period of time you're earning it.
You've got no security. And bearing in mind a freelance contract is normally a 1-week notice.
Yeah.
So in reality, you're only really working week to week. They can say it's 6 months or 12 months or 2 years, but the reality is it's 1 week. It took a while, the doubt set in, but I got through that. I got offered a job at Lambeth Living, which was the arm's length housing management organisation. Interesting setup, very different to Tower Hamlets, very different to central government, quite odd in a lot of ways. Housing, it's the only time I've worked in the housing sector, so to say. It was the biggest procurement in Europe at the time.
By this point, you knew what procurement was.
I knew what procurement was. I was working on developing the processes and training. And I think it's about £2 billion. It was about a 15-year procurement thing we worked on. I think I did that for about a year. So from there, I moved on to various other local government organisations. I worked for London Borough Barnet, Redbridge, Croydon, where I met Mark, who you know works for us. I met Mark at Croydon, Steve, who works for us. I met at Croydon, Shelley, who works for us. I met at Croydon. So I've employed all those people since they moved on and retired.
Was it at this point where you started to think, I could do this, I could run this myself?
A lot of the projects that I started to work on were transformation or were around software or procurement, or they were multifaceted, so they involved lots and lots of different things. So it wasn't a discipline around surveying per se. So it wasn't valuing property. That wasn't what I'd gone into local government to do. I was working on project based, so it was depending on what was involved in that particular project or that particular organisation. You were in solving problems. So
that was really good actually, because that's giving you a bigger wealth of knowledge and experience working in different elements.
I got exposed to huge amounts of different
different
areas of work. Some of them high profile, some of them not high profile particularly, some of them quite discrete pieces of work. Other pieces of work would have been quite technically difficult to deliver from a project perspective, because often projects aren't necessarily technically difficult. It's stakeholder engagement or the project management which is difficult because you're managing multiple people or multiple things happening at the same time. So I'd found that flair of project management, and I liked working with lots of different stakeholders. So I was fortunate. I'd worked across lots of different teams: facilities management, capital delivery, IT, estate management teams, and have met lots of good people. So what tended to happen, so as I referred to earlier, a guy called Colin, who actually had interviewed me to go into Tower Hamlets, he was a career freelancer, so he would go in and then he would bring in a couple of people to work with him depending on what the project required. I was one of those go-to people that he would often call. I didn't work with him at Lambeth. I was at Lambeth, we'd come to an end and he called me to go to Croydon, I think it was, but he was starting to retire. So I was already winning my own work. I'd made a conscious decision to start to work multi-client to reduce risk. So I was working for Barnet and Croydon at the same time, working across multiple projects because it spread risk. Now, a lot of people at that point, the freelancers were quite settled on, well, I'll get 6 months, I'll work there, and then I'll worry about that at the end of the next 6 months. The situation where I'd gone 4 or 5 months without work had put a fear into me that you can't count your chicken. You've got to be prepared. And then I started to talk to a couple of the software providers and really started to look at, can I start to get some of my own projects? I'd already met Claire, who works for us now, and I'd already met Terry that worked for us now. They both worked with me previously and have become good colleagues. So I then started to win some of my own work and projects and then started to subcontract work to them. So I'd started to move away from the pure freelancing and into more of the, if you like, doing it as a business. Yeah. So actually winning a piece of work or being awarded a piece of work to deliver rather than being paid for going to work so many days a week.
You can sort of almost already organically see OCG forming just from the nature of what you were doing and the people you were meeting.
I'd already started to talk to a number of people at Croydon Marie was there. So Terry was one of them. There was another chap there called John, and Claire was working with us there. And I'd come up with that idea of doing it as a team or me leading and subbing work to them. And I think the first company name I'd come up with was Implement It, which was Implement IT. We wasn't so sure about that. But actually, I then got some referrals. London Borough of Hounslow, I think, was our first formal project. We'd won that project and started working on that.
So it's sort of, these things just happened, but you were obviously willing for them to happen.
I had, and as you said earlier, I think the exposure that I'd had to so many different things really gave me that multifaceted understanding of all areas of property as a discipline. And all areas of local government especially. That's my strength.
Yeah.
Of understanding all of the different areas and the different wheels and how they turn. And one of the things that I think I've developed quite a good skill for as well is understanding in the room where the positions of strength are in terms of stakeholders. So working with those groups of people, understanding where the leverages are, understanding who you need to get on side to get things delivered is a skill set. You can't teach that. I think you can train it to a point. But you can't, it's not something like a technical skill you can teach someone, like, valuing a property is a technical skill.
You can't follow a list of instructions. I suppose that brings us back to the importance of apprenticeships and work experience.
So I was working on my own, as you know, winning projects or starting to win projects and then subbing them to other freelancers that were working with me at the time. So that would have been on a day rate basis. And then we're starting, as you say, to form OCG in its own right. I won a couple of key projects at Tower Hamlets, and I was working on some projects down on the south coast as well. No, we'd won projects, it was in North Lincolnshire. So I'd been introduced to somebody up there. We ended up going up there and working on the job up there. It was really starting to build. Interesting, exciting, but really starting to build. And that's when I started to think about we're going to need some support and start to really think about formalising this.
So at what time or what period of time did you first start having somebody working for you, with you?
So Sarah worked with me at first. So she started working for me a couple of mornings or a couple of days a week on a self-employed basis. So I was paying her hourly rate and she was doing administration.
Just really like meetings. Somebody else to
Like a lot of people have. It's administrative. So it's all of the administrative tasks that you don't really want to do when you've been working all week on a Friday night or a Saturday. So Sarah was the first informal employee, if you like.
And how long was it just the two of you?
A few months. She was working at my breakfast bar at our house. Then I formally recruited Joanne Nassay, as you know, who's still with us now. So she was officially, I believe, if you check her payroll, should be employee 001. She took over the administrative work that Sarah had been doing. Sarah was doing some other work, and then she came back as employee number 2 and started formally working with me as well. And then,
were you still based at home?
Yeah.
You were all based at home?
Yeah.
And it's really funny, actually, because obviously work with Jo now, but she said looking back to those very first days, there was this saying that always sticks with her, just one more project.
I think On a basis I'm scared of needles, there's never any likelihood of me getting a tattoo. But I imagine if Joanne wanted to tattoo me, it would be just one more project.
Yeah.
You said ... But I do remember having that conversation with her when it was 8 or 9, and then it was 17 or 18, and it was like just one more. But people just kept giving us work, genuinely.
I love that saying. When she said that, I said, oh my God, that is such a poignant thing, because it just shows that it just happened and it was just so organic and it just naturally grew.
You get a reputation for delivery.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And as I said earlier, I'd worked across London. I'd worked for a lot of local authorities. I had a lot of contacts. We're trustworthy. You know, your clients have got to be trustworthy as well as you as a delivery agent. So as I said, I'd built a lot of relationships with a lot of people who were really happy to work with us. As you meet these different people as you go, and if other people are promoting you in the sense of saying this guy delivers stuff,
Yeah.
then that's how you get that reputation. So what will happen is when there's high profile projects or things that need dealing with now, or things that may be on the complex side, people will go back to somebody that they trust and they know.
Yeah, sure.
Because you haven't got time to learn a new person and how they're going to work and whether they're going to be any good.
Yeah.
So that's what we got a very good reputation for, especially around the IT projects, but also more on my multifaceted skill side. So OCG has started to form, as you say. We'd started to bring on administrative staff. We'd gone to Cheshunt to Broxbourne Council, and we'd rented offices there.
Okay, thank you, John. I think that's the perfect time for us to take a break and join us in our next video where we talk about the business and the next stages.
Thank you.
Thank you.